The Roman Empire was the mightiest empire on earth, one that had to maintain order amongst its people. Law and order, as some may say. To do this, they had to come up with creative, yet effective punishments for those who broke the law. Punishments for criminal offenses, whether free or slave, were often carried out quickly. Minor offenses might be punished with a beating, flogging, or branding on the forehead. For more serious offenses, you might be punished with amputation, tearing out the tongue, or cutting off the ears. You could be buried alive, impaled, or crucifixion as the death penalty. Punishment of the sack. Romans were not afraid to put someone to death by torture. One example of such punishment was to tie a prisoner in a heavy bag with a snake, a rooster, a monkey, and a dog. Then throw the bag into the river. It is hard to imagine what pain this must have been like. This punishment was often reserved for patricide or a son who murdered his father. Roman candle. One of the most infamous punishments was the Roman candle. This was a form of torture and humiliation where the offender was stripped naked, then covered in pitch and set alight. It was used as a warning to other criminals and was often used for repeat offenders. Other methods of execution included crucifixion, where the criminal was hung from a cross and left to die; death by wild beasts, where criminals were thrown into an arena with wild animals; and death by burning, where criminals were burned alive. Eaten from the middle. Ancient Rome's executioners used animals to execute their sentences. The example shows a starved animal, such as a cat or rat, being placed in a metal bucket. The bucket would be flipped over and the opening fixed or held to the victim's stomach. The inside of the bucket will then heat slowly as it is flipped over. The trapped animal would want to escape and find the best way out through their stomachs. It is truly horrible. The basket of bees. Many ancient Roman punishments were both extremely cruel and downright bizarre. The basket of bees punishment is a good example. The victim was stripped and put into a large basket made of woves. The basket was then towed up into a tree next to an active beehive. The bees would then get angry and attack the person who was in the basket, eventually stinging them to death. Although this can take some time, those who were lucky were able to die quickly from allergic reactions to bee bites. Buried alive. Most people fear being buried alive. Ancient Rome used this method to punish criminals. However, it was sometimes used to punish innocent persons for pleasure or minor infractions. The priestess Rubria was one example. She sealed alive in a small cave and starved to death. Her only crime was not being strong enough against Emperor Nero. This punishment was further enhanced by the fact that people were sometimes forced to dig their own graves before being buried alive. Fed to wild hogs. Saint Gregory described this punishment. It was usually applied to young women who had been convicted of wrongdoing under Roman rule. This was an awful way to die, and it was shocking in its barbarism. The gladiators would first strip the victim and then cut her stomach open. The gladiators then filled her stomach with barley, and then she was sewn up again. But this was not the end. She would finally be put in a pen with wild, fierce hogs that would tear her apart while she was still alive. Put into a barrel. Domitian was another emperor who enjoyed inventing ancient Roman punishments. It would appear that he enjoyed making Christians suffer. A common and horrible way to make people suffer was to put them in a barrel. They would be covered with honey and milk before being forced to eat parasite-ridden food. They would be nailed to the barrel and left there while the parasites ate their insides. Death would be their sweet escape after the rotting body gave up. These are just some of the most brutal punishments used during the Roman Empire. It's clear that the Romans had a range of punishments to deter criminals, and that these punishments were often cruel and unusual. So be sure to subscribe to our channel to stay up to date with our content. And as always, thanks for watching.